Hello world, Other Team back at it again, doing some more voicing training, track 2 stuff. I am Nai Coach, and with me I have Nai Mitchell, Ben, and Glenn, and we are going to finish up tonight the theme section on Mojo reading. All right, so let's just jump in and get this going. All right, so Ben, what are firm reads? How do firm reads relate to purification updates?
Firm read refers to a Mojo reading where the Mojo reader feels that they have the correct answer and has looked at sufficient media to confirm it with a significant degree of confidence. Firm reads are still subject to periodic re-examination to see if any purification updates are necessary.
Cool.
So a firm read refers to a Mojo reading in which the Mojo reader feels that they have a firm level of confidence that that person is what they think that Mojo is. However, these reads still need to be looked at periodically in order to make sure that the person still has basically a firm read of that person, because obviously the level of confidence is going to change based on new information and so forth.
Good. Mitchell?
Yeah. Right. So firm read refers to basically where the reader feels that they have the correct answer and they have quite a lot of confidence in being able to believe that because they have actually looked at sufficient media to come to that conclusion. And so firm reads relate to purification updates because even though they are firm, you still have to do purifications on them because just what you're basing your conception of what the read is could change drastically based on how your synonymy is affected through other purifications that happen and just all the kinds of standard biases that you still have in Mojo reading and just limited data in certain areas.
Glenn?
Right, so firm read refers to a reading that is pretty much when the reader has a sufficient amount of confidence, given that they have read the sample, and they've looked at enough evidence to basically come to the conclusion that this person is a certain Mojo. However, there are obviously going to still be periods where there's going to be re-examinations and given purifications and stuff, and so that person's Mojo is still subject to change in the future, but the person who's reading does have like a very confident feel that they are a certain Mojo, and yeah, basically.
Good. All right. Because until we get some sort of process such as DNA or something like that, they can be used to verify Mojo, or some sort of technology, facial recognition that can do it. We're going with the human effort, and so you're kind of making the best purchases you have. Use those that you feel confident with to keep going forward, and that works. But then sometimes you have to double back and update how you got forward. All right, yeah. Mitchell, what are soft reads? How do soft reads relate to purification updates?
Great. Soft read refers to a Mojo reading where the Mojo reader feels that they may have the correct answer, but does not have sufficient media to confirm it with a significant degree of confidence. Soft reads are subject to more frequent re-examination to see if any purification updates are necessary. Makes sense.
Is it always sufficient media when it comes to soft reads? Like, is it always a matter of the?
In this case, we're talking about sufficient media from the point of view of enough for you to feel confident. So sometimes you might feel confident with a 1 minute video just because you feel like, oh, I think I know this kind of riff, this kind of sample. And other times there might be ample media, but for some reason you don't feel super confident, but you have a leaning, an inclination.
Something like unusual about them, yeah.
So the unusualness, would that not be classified as a soft read, or would that be classified as something else?
No, it's a soft read because you don't have, in this case, it's a there's two kinds of sufficient media, I guess, as far as like a subtle distinction here. There's sufficient media as far as meeting the requirements for us to actually look at that case. Like, we're not going to go and get involved into a case that is suggested to us by certain by outside requests if it doesn't have a basic amount. So that's sort of like a processing minimum. But then there's also the amount of media that a given Mojo reader requires in order to get the read. So that might be, for some reason, have taken me a long time. I actually had tons and tons of media. I needed time. I didn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't that so it wasn't sufficient enough for me to feel firm on it. Does that make sense?
Sure, that makes sense. It seems like that would be more of a matter of time rather than the media in that case, because sufficient media to me implies the amount of media you have available to you as opposed to the amount of time that that you spend. But of course, if with more time you look at more media. But
I see what you're saying. So I think I'll add something here.
Digestibility or something, right?
Yeah, I'll say it does not have sufficient media experience or ability to confirm it.
yeah, I like that.
Familiarity with the case, kind of like.
Yeah. So
That's good too. Sort of like experience, but a little bit different. So I'll put sufficient media experience, familiarity, or ability to confirm it. Cool.
cool.
Updated.
Nice.
Is it Mitchell going?
Yeah, it's my turn. Right, so soft read refers to a case where the Mojo reader does feel they have the correct answer, but it's a little more complicated because than a firm read, because there's either maybe they have like what they would consider sufficient media, or that they don't have like experience or familiarity with something about the sample, or they just don't have the ability they feel to confirm it, or just haven't like looked at it long enough, etc. And so they're confident they have the correct answer, but for some reason, but there's something about it that would make us a little shakier. And so maybe it's not as confident as a firm read. And what was the second question? What's the second question again?
Oh, the second question is has related to purification.
How is right? Because just like the hard reads, the soft reads are going to have to be subject to purification. The firm reads, they're going to have to be subject to purification. But in the case of soft reads, it's actually even more paramount that purifications be done, because new data could just come out even on the sample. So it's not even just like the classic Mojo reading processing things that happen. There's just straightforward things of a reason that you would want to look at them again, just because you get better media, you get a lens upgrade.
Exactly, and then exactly. So I generally also go think of like you may want to have a firm read tickle you in order to be, oh, maybe I should go look at that one again. But with soft reads, I generally just kind of schedule that I'm going to swing back there. Soft reads are kind of like they're above pending, but I still want to go and touch that one some more. All right, Glenn.
All right, so soft reads refer to reads that may be correct to a certain degree. They're not as firm as a firm read is, but there is still like a decent amount of accuracy that's usually given with the soft read. But given that soft reads have less confidence in them, it usually is attributed to the fact that the amount of time spent on that sample is perhaps a little bit less, and the person might also have less media of that on that sample as well. In relation to purifications, soft reads are it's more common for them to have to go through several re-examination waves as compared to firm reads, which require a little bit less, given whether or not purifications are necessary for that sample that is a soft read.
Good. And then Ben, take it home.
All right. So a soft read is where the Mojo reader feels that they have the correct answer on a particular read, but they either do not have the time or the experience or the sufficient media in order to achieve the level of confidence of a firm read. As a result, more constant purifications are in order because there's a good chance that over time, experience, or they will have more time, or they will have to gain a firmer read sample, and that also implies that there's a higher likelihood that the person's guess will turn over something else.
Good. All right, Glenn, you are up on this one. How is Mojo reading accuracy determined? What are some variations? How does Mojo design confirmation accuracy relate to the purpose of Mojo reading in general? And then how does this relate to pod layer theory proof of concept?
Right, so Mojo reading accuracy refers to how many correct Mojo reads a reader has done out of their last 100 samples. There are many variations that can be done from this basic score, such as accuracy over a longer period of time, accuracy on particular gender Mojos, accuracy on certain career bubbles, and so on. There's much more to Mojo reading than just accurately confirming a person's Mojo design, such as their development level, riff connections, and state of health, to name just a few. However, it is a good general gauge for all Mojo reading practitioners to use in order to track how well they are progressing. Mojo reading accuracy scores are also essential in establishing proof of concept regarding the Mojo phenomenon and the Podler methodology for observing it. Yeah, your overall Mojo reading accuracy is like your general overall ability in Mojo reading, but there are certain areas where you can sort of like hone in and develop more deeper understandings like riff and all that sort of stuff, right? I think that's kind of like the
exactly
what was being trying to articulate there. Yeah.
Yep, you got it. All right. Whenever you're ready.
Right.
Yeah, because the other kinds of things that you get from reading a person, which are equally valuable, really, but they are a bit fuzzier on interpreting what exactly means what, and so there's more room for interpretation, and thus interpretation of how well you're flexing your lens. Whereas with the design, the Mojo design, that's more mathematical and like it's kind of like a blood type. So if you're able to get that accurately or not, that's a more clear-cut bar. So we make it the focal point.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, all the other assessments would be skewed anyway. Like trying to assess their health, if you're assessing their health as a knee shy when they're actually shy knee, automatically, I mean, you might still be able to.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you could still get a good amount of information on their overall ad-ROM develop, but automatically there's a bit of perfection that you'll never get until you get the design right.
Yeah, the design comes first and foremost, and then everything else kind of follows from there. Basically, is how it works.
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna see if I can do this. And so Mojo reading accuracy is basically determined by taking the last 100 samples that you answered on and seeing how many you got right as compared to how many you got wrong, and then seeing what your total is. So out of 100, if you got 50, then that means that you're 50% Mojo reading accuracy. That's your level of Mojo reading ability, accuracy, basically. That's how it's determined. Some variations on Mojo reading include many different ways in which you can look at the phenomenon. You can basically figure out what the Mojo design of the individual is, but you can also look at other things such as their overall health, their overall, what career bubbles they happen to be a part of, their gender Mojo. You can look at many different areas and subsections of the overall Mojo design, and then see what that means and whether or not you can develop certain more development and honing in of one skill in certain areas within that overall realm of Mojo reading. It relates to the overall accuracy. Mojo reading, how does Mojo reading design information? It relates to the purpose of Mojo reading in general, in the sense that you can't necessarily determine. You can't. A person's Mojo design isn't everything there is to a person, but it is a significant part of it. And so, basing your judgment on, understanding your ability to differentiate between different Mojo designs and having a good development of accuracy is a significant part of your ability to be a Podler practitioner. And so it is the most important thing overall, but it isn't necessarily the only thing that's important when it comes to Mojo reading. As far as proof of concept, when it comes to the Podler theory, the Podler methodology, Mojo reading and having a high level of accuracy supports the overall proof of concept, in that more people are able to see the truth and are able to correctly answer unanimously that a person is a certain Mojo. And so the more and more we develop this within our culture, within our people, within our tribe, the more that means that we're all seeing the same thing. And so if everyone is seeing the same thing, then that means that basically we're all seeing natural law, which is absolutely undeniably true and there and empirical. And so that is a very powerful proof of concept.
Cool. Got it. Nice. Ben?
All right. So Mojoing accuracy is determined by the last 100 reads, samples that you've read, what you guessed on them compared to what the actual answer was. This isn't the only way to calculate Mojoing accuracy. You could calculate based on career bubble or a person's gender Mojo, or many other ways by using information about a person. As far as how it relates to Mojoing in general, there's also much more to Mojoing than just a person's Mojo design configuration. There's also their riff, or their level of health, level of development, and so on and so forth. But your Mojoing accuracy is a good general gauge of how good you are at Mojoing. Is the best overall gauge we really have to singularly get an idea. It's also important for establishing Podler's proof of concept, because showing what a person's Mojoing accuracy is the best way to is an important means of establishing that we are actually seeing Mojo effectively overall, that we're not just seeing part of something else,
Exactly.
Unless we're all sipping juice,
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, the more people see it, then it's sort of like, well, that
We're
means
seeing
that all
something. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, Mitchell.
mean, our brains could be like freaking wired in like some tube, and like nobody'd be able to prove it either. You know what I mean?
But that's part of the human condition, right? With any theory, there's always going to be that sort of like, do we really have it? And then so you pursue more, you know, you go out there and you try and search for more answers. But then more and more answers lead to more questions, and so on and so on and so on. It's like a circle getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Exactly, and it relates to kind of two things we've mentioned before, but it's worth mentioning here as part of it. One is the lens. So if you think there's bacteria and you and other people disagree on whether there is bacteria or not, or what it would be like if you could see it, you need the sufficient microscope. And then once that's there, then more and more people can look at it. But back in the day when microscopes first came out, very few people had them. And over time, more and more people had microscopes. So it was seeable by the eye by more and more people, like, oh, there are microbes. But then on the other hand, we are the lens, which is different. And that brings in the element of, say, tacit learning. I mentioned like the Bessemer-Steele legal precedent, which is basically...
You remember that right off the bat. Yeah, but I told you. Yeah.
It's important because it's very, very important, because people often think that what we're doing, like, that's not real, or how you track that. But no, you don't actually have to have everyone who can do it, but you have to have a few, and then they have to be able to transfer it. That's the general basic requirement for tacit learning. And then they can perform a given result, in our case, cohesion of accuracy under blind test conditions, they're like, okay, they are doing something with this method. You're saying,
you know, like, so much of the scientific community like uses tacit learning too, and I'm just like the Bessemer-Steele project. Like, if you read Thomas Kuhn's Structured Scientific Revolutions, he talks about that. Like, literally, that's part of what the scientific paradigm. There's always tacit training that the students go through in being educated in a scientific paradigm. There's no real getting around that.
Exactly.
People who say that, you know, the phenomenon doesn't exist, and then we come up with more evidence, it's sort of the same thing as like saying like any sort of scientific pursuit when it comes to anything. You could say that about anything, right? Like, I mean, is there really an atom? You know, you can question that and go further.
And that's why Podler is rolled out as it has and will continue to do so in the coming generations, because you have to treat it like a campaign. Because there's lots of times it's been science that was around for a long time, but very few people knew it. You have to kind of figure out, what we're doing now, what would it take for people to see it and then get that. So if it's microscope, if it's telescopes, if it's making a still laboratory where there's no wind drag, you need to take all wind out of the equation for people to see it. Whatever you need to do, and that's what we're kind of figuring out now, is what presentation is required in order to do it. And then also, kind of like, you know, upper level mathematics, some people just can't do it or not right away. So you have to figure out what is the talent pool? What kind of people of what kind of riff, of what kind of development level can actually pick it up the fastest? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Actually, or what people just won't get like intimidated by it, because like that's so much of like what it is, just like motoring, is if you get, you know, intimidated by experience, you know, you give up, then you're not gonna learn upper level mathematics. You know what I mean? So it's like,
that's very true.
I mean, that's why people like say they suck at math, is because they're afraid to actually really apply themselves to actually become good at it. Like,
it's true, and also the way that it's taught too.
Also, the way that's taught makes it more intimidating, and then that causes them to become afraid, and then you have the same problem.
Ralph Abraham has a whole theory about how people can overcome math anxiety based on the way that mathematics has been learned throughout history.
Yes, I think plans, for example, the sample sort program, is I eventually want to get to where we can have like teaching modules, where like the samples go by at a regular rate, sort of like a slideshow with like maybe an audio instruction of like talking all about, say we're doing V Mojos, explaining all about V, what it's like, what it looks like, different variations, and all these samples there. So make these kinds of experiments, and then try to get people to want to engage in them. And whatever happens, happens, but that'll be good information, because I think once we get the Rosetta Stone and then the sample sort program to have like that kind of demoing ability, we're going to dial in, and whatever it is, it's going to be a minimum amount people need to see in order to start tracking it. and then we had to find the right people. So you guys already were able to do it. So the ability, and you were inclined. So then we had to find more people who had the inclination who are willing to take an experiment. And so we'll probably try to like present like a survey. And some people like taking surveys, so kind of like selling sort of like an interesting meditative survey and see what you think. And I think there are some people that they would find that not a chore, but rather entertaining. Some people, for example, like going around and actually taking all kinds of surveys of like what's your Enneagram type or what's this and that, and they actually just find that kind of fun. So we'll need to actually make a survey product that will kind of fit a fun experiment criteria. But on the other hand, like I said, the fun experiments will be like 1,000 samples. There's just simply that's the minimum. But trying to make taking the experiment appealing, and then trying to line up a lot of people who have taken one or more collaging rides and give us their feedback. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about trying to angling us in the future is making these rides. Obviously training first with Sample Surfer, but then turning these training things into rides, and then asking people to take the ride as an experiment for the public, and if they want to get feedback, that'd be great. That's kind of where I'm thinking it, because I imagine a lot like making a fire. There's just a minimum amount. You try to make the things as best you can, and then you really focus all your energy on what will actually produce a spark. But the Sample Store program should allow us to, I think, entice a lot more people, and anyone can download it, so our network will be pretty much the internet. So that's pretty cool.
And we can put something on the web too, like
Oh yeah.
We can definitely make a web version of the Sample Surfer if we want to.
So one thing, once we get those two things kind of more further along, the first thing is Rosetta Stone, kind of getting closer to getting the first one done, and then we're really making our energy is going to focus on the Sample Server program and making it awesome. And then when we kind of got that for our own purposes to make us badasses and enjoy ourselves, we're like, we love this product. You know what I mean? We love playing the Sample Server program. That will make pitching it easier if you have something you really enjoy. And we'll probably start then looking at different maybe new agey stuff or sciencey stuff or whatever, where people actually take different surveys for some sort of scientific experiment and start trying to find maybe some Xi principles of what makes that appealing to do. So that's basically what you want to do, is actually try to get a lot of people to take these experiment rides on the Sample Server. So 1, 2, 3, Rosetta Stone, almost getting there. I'll talk about it later this year, but I was going for like 3 years to get the first basic one sort of mocked up, but I might even be able to do it sooner than that. We'll see. I'm pushing really hard.
I'm sure there's going to be some like really talented people, out there that if they apply themselves, they could be like really good, at this. You know what I mean? Like
totally.
Because like we Mitchell, I, myself, Gleb, we might not be there's probably people who are have way more like raw talent in them than we do, that like if they got into this,
they're focused. Yeah, the talent pool. Yeah. Whenever things get more people engaged,
and I'm sure if we all focus more as well, we could probably be better than we are.
Yeah, I agree. Totally.
Yeah, more people get involved, the more contributions that they'll be able to make, and who knows.
And the bigger of a deal it becomes, it's easier to kind of invest more energy to it. That's like language. That's why languages are very difficult, but there's a lot of motivation. A lot of people are doing it. It's like a thing to do, and so. It promotes like a nice.
And like the more that gives everyone more confidence, and everyone becomes better at Mojo reading, and
That's the point too. Yeah, more people builds confidence, and confidence really does affect Mojo reading.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on that? I think it's basically it. But anyway, that's kind of where we're arcing. So the Rosetta Stone into the Sample Server program, and make that for us personally, because we're currently the best readers out there, and we're also the kind of people who wanted to do this kind of work, is get to where we love it, and then after we do that. Translating that into pitchable items to people, like why we like doing it so much, and get them to want to do what we're doing as like a hobby. That'll be where we're going. All right, Mitchell.
All right then. Read it a little bit again. It's been a little while. All right, Mojo reading accuracy is generally determined when we're just thinking about like most of the time as like the last 100 samples that a person has read, and basically how many they've got right as far as their configuration of those 100 samples. But you could do variations on that. That's really just like a nice snapshot that we like to use for how one's kind of done. in a relatively recent framework. So you could look at like how they done on just on certain gender mojos, career bubbles, etc. Because people have different specialties, different things they're interested in, etc. And there's any other cross sections you want to think about. And then how does Mojo design relates to the purpose of Mojo reading in general, because it is, I mean, a clear sign of progression of a sort. So that's why we use it. It's really it's very meaningful, but also pretty well defined. So it's a good progression marker. But there is more to Mojo reading than just getting someone's cognitive configuration. You can go much deeper than that. We're always going to be looking into that. And it relates to our proof of concept, because if people can be doing, increase their Mojo reading accuracy, having high Mojo reading accuracies, it shows that they're kind of lining up on something. So people have acknowledged that, because basically it's like a feat of statistics.
It's sort of like a repeatable experiment,
Yeah,
it is. Anytime people can come to a cohesion of accuracy on some sort of inquiry under blind test conditions, generally that's considered that might not be the reason you think it is, but something's probably going on there, and science should investigate it more. That's kind of like the first, like when you're on the radar, like there might be something there, is if there is some separate, in our case, blind test conditions, but it could also be just they do it separately, are tracking something in a similar direction. We think it's pretty firmer than that, because we can actually see it ourselves. But for those who can't see it yet, the fact that some people can actually get to a cohesion of accuracy on inquiry under blind test conditions, that is considered in science something you need to actually explain. That needs to be, even if you don't think it's the reason the first scientists, in our case us, think it is, that feat demands an explanation of some kind, investigation and explanation. All right, Ben, back to you. Okay, what is peaks and troughs advancement? What are two things that influence this? How does this relate to skill progression?
There's a peaks and troughs advancement rhythm to one's progression in Mojo reading, as there will be a general long-term rise in accuracy, but with high and low periods mixed in. This is because no two Mojo reads are the same in difficulty, so patches of easier or harder reads will influence one's accuracy score during those stretches. Also, at different periods in a person's life, particularly in regards to stress, distraction, and available free time, there'll be difficulty modifiers that will influence one's accuracy score. However, if one stays focused on honing the Mojo reading abilities, they can be sure it will continue to improve overall in the long term.
Beautifully said.
There is a peak and troughs advancement rhythm when it comes to Mojo readings. Because in general, while a person may gradually progress over time, there will be high and low patches mixed in. One reason that this happens is because due to the variance in the samples that a person is going to be consuming, some are going to be easier for a person than others in general within a period of time, which creates a variance in a person's accuracy score, for example. And then another reason that this happens is because a person's level of stress, how distracted they are, how focused they are, how much time they have, that isn't exactly constant either. That's always changing. So that also causes a person's accuracy to change, move up and down as well. However, there's still a gradual progression to this. Your lows will become higher and your highs will become higher, even though you're kind of wobbling as you go along. So there's a natural upward skill progression if you're continuing to stay focused.
Mitchell?
Right. So peaks and troughs advancement is just sort of the rhythm to the way that one's Mojo reading advances, which is that there is going to be an overall advancement over time, but to that there's going to be peaks and troughs. So there will be highs and lows within that'll be like sort of more wave-like than just like a linear progression, which is just often not how things work.
It is.
And two things that influence this. One is that the samples themselves that you're going to encounter on your Mojo reading can be all kinds of difficulty just because of their features, the media involved, all kinds of things with the sample and the media for the sample. It can influence how accurate you're able to be in reading them, and then also just with the reader themselves, what they're going through in their life, how much time they have, how distracted they are by things, how stressed they are going to weigh on their lens and could make it different times easier or more difficult for Mojo reading and their general confidence. But it relates to skill progression because just over time, even though there's going to be tough periods, down periods where you feel like you're losing ground, over time your lows will actually get higher and your highs will get higher, and you'll make consistent progress in Mojo reader as long as you keep applying yourself. It's often true with all kinds of activities.
Indeed. Glenn, take it on.
All right, so when it comes to Mojo reading, there's a natural rhythm that flows with that, which is referred to as the peaks and troughs advancement. In that, over the long term, one's Mojo reading accuracy will steadily rise as the months and the years go on. But within that, if you zoom in, you'll notice that there's going to be little highs and lows along the way, which is what the peaks and troughs advancement refers to, basically. There's two reasons for this. One is more of an objective reason, and one is more of a subjective reason. In that, the objectively speaking, the samples themselves, and this is known, I think, like even given several different Mojo readers of varying levels of ability, some samples are just naturally harder to read and be able to get a firm understanding of what that person's Mojo is across the board for all Mojo readers. And so this is something that's taking note of, like that's objective, that's singular to the sample that's being read. And so different samples have different levels of difficulty and easiness and ease in terms of being able to figure out what their Mojo is. And so that's the objective angle. But then also at the same time, there's a subjective angle as well, in that the person themselves is reading their own instrument, given distraction, stress, or what have you, their abilities in being able to read aren't always going to be static. They're not always going to be the same. Sometimes the person, given distractions or whatever, their abilities are going to be better or worse on that given day, in that given moment, whatever the case might be. And so that's the subjective, more personal element as to why these sorts of things occur. And this relates to overall the person's skill progression, in that even though one may be going through like little highs and lows along the way, if a person continues to stay focused and consistent and dedicated to the overall craft of their Mojo reading, they will eventually gradually get better and better across the board in terms of their Mojo reading. As Mitchell and Ben said, their highs will get higher and their lows will get higher.
Indeed. All right, Mitchell, take lead in this next one. What are Mojo reading accuracy thresholds? What are mid-size thresholds? What are large-size thresholds? Describe the 4 large-scale thresholds.
Every increase in a person's Mojo reading accuracy is a noteworthy accomplishment, including even small increases such as partial percentage points. Along the way, there are also certain milestones that give special validation in one's progression, which are called Mojo reading accuracy thresholds. There are obvious mid-size thresholds that happen at every 5 and 10% point increases, as there is something encouraging about reaching the next big round number. Then also, there are large size accuracy thresholds that are associated with major implications, which happen at the 25, 50, 75, and 100% marks. 25% accuracy is when statistically significant proof of concept begins. Honestly, maybe before that. 50% accuracy is when Mojo reading becomes a viable life skill to base important decisions on. 75% accuracy is the requirement for being on the pro-level demo team, and 100% accuracy is the ultimate goal for all Mojo reading practitioners.
But then there's 100% accuracy with one eye open.
And then no eyes open.
Oh my goodness.
Voice reading alone.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, you
And
can
then,
hone your singular abilities.
No voice. You have to use like subtle vibrations. Aura reading.
Basically, you can always get better, is what it comes down to.
And the truth is, 100% accuracy
like,
is pretty tough to stay at.
Just like you read the patterns in the wind, and then that suddenly allows you to read everyone within a 100-mile radius. That's like beyond.
I'm super stoked when we get like the core Rosetta Stone. We'll keep going after that, but get like the core 32, and then we get the Sandwich Store program to just cross section. Oh man, I'm gonna geek out that like video game geek out.
That's gonna be awesome. Yeah, it totally feels like a video game. Honestly, just like looking at it and making it. It's just because like. I mean, as we stack more and more stuff, like if we, if we connect this to like the internet and have like everyone's like profiles online stuff, it's gonna eventually just feel like an MMORPG game.
Yeah, cool.
It's like so.
HRL RPG is what it is.
HRL, exactly. Of course, it's like digital, but yeah, it's still, but it's real, So,
for sure. It's still very real. Yeah.
Well, I mean, digital is in like I'm talking about like a program and like a database and so forth. But,
yeah.
Right, but and I guess what I think I see your angle, Ben. I think what Mitch was referring to is that if you're playing, digital or otherwise, you're playing like some sort of made-up creature. That's actually going to always be like role playing or like a fantasy. Whereas if you're training. Either it's digital, you're actually training to improve your actual skills, and that actually
like a real life stuff.
It's
your skills, not just like a character you created.
The digital stuff is kind of where you're storing.
It's the skills of your creator, not one that you created. So
right, because like if you play poker online, you may not physically be playing with the person, but trust me, your skill is going up, and if you win, your money will go up too.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
All right, done.
Can't wait till we have an actual MMO though. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So motor reading accuracy thresholds are like validation that one gets for progressing past a certain point in their motor reading accuracy. And there's different kinds of this. So there's like every accuracy that you gain is noteworthy, even like partial percentage points, you gain something. And there's like mid-sized thresholds, which are like 5% to 10%-ish gains, which is a significant boost. And then large size thresholds are like the really significant. So like 25%, 50%, 75%, and 100% we have. And 25% we use to denote a certain level of just statistical significance, the fact that you could even guess 1 or 4 correctly is meaningful. And then 50% is where it's an ability that is relatively reliable. You can actually start basing life decisions on it to some degree. 75% is our requirement to be on the professional demo team that we have, and 100% is basically the ultimate goal that you just even staying at for any period is incredible.
100% is like the mu of, what do you call it, Mojo reading.
Yeah, like you can catch it and then even just staying with it. Like,
Yeah.
you stay at 100?
All right,
How
Glenn,
long?
your turn.
All right. So, what's it called again? All right. So every increase in one's Mojo reading accuracy is going to be it's noteworthy, and it means something, and it's something that should be celebrated. Even partial percentages are, they should be, they're noteworthy, and they should be congratulated. However, there's also more bigger milestone kind of percentages that one can achieve, and those ones are more long-term kind of goals that one can set for themselves. There's 4 in particular, but before we get into that, there's also like mid-size thresholds as well, like 5 to 10 percentages, which is nice, like 25%, and then you go to 30%. That jump from one round number to another round number, it just feels satisfying in one's mind. Like, I'm at 30% level now. 25%, get out of here. I'm 30% now. So it feels good to, those 5 to 10%, which is like the next step. It's more of like a mid-level advancement. But then there's also larger gap advancements, like going from 25% to 50%. So those are much larger, and there's 4 variations of those. And it starts with the 25% mark, which is basically when your Mojo reading level accuracy reaches a point where it becomes statistically significant, and you can start to actually build on it from there to go even higher. Usually I find like there's like a bit of a fuzzy period. I think I remember from getting up to the 25% mark, and then once I got there, then it was sort of like, okay, I think I understand the game now, and
Right.
then you kind of started to build from there. But then from there is the 50% mark, where I'm currently, I feel like I'm straddling on that line every now and then, which is more of like your ability is developing more and more, but and it's becoming more of like a life skill that you can use and apply to make important decisions on, but it's still not where you want it to be. And then 75% is when it actually you reach a point where you become validated in the sense that you become eligible to be a part of the pro level demo team that Podler has, and so that's another milestone that's worthy, and that also means something very significant there. And then from there, there's the 100% Mojo reading accuracy level, which is the goal that every Mojo reading practitioner is always striving to want to achieve and to attain, despite it being like very, very, what's the word, like,
difficult.
difficult is one. It's sort of like fleeting in a way.
Yeah, it's a challenge to get there, and it's a challenge to maintain. It's good. Make sure one's is keeping their spiritual effort proper. Okay, Ben.
All right. Sounds good. So every increase in a person's Mojo reading accuracy is a noteworthy accomplishment, including even partial percentage point increases. After that, you get into notable thresholds of increase to a person's Mojo reading accuracy. You have mid-sized thresholds, which are something like 5 to 10 percentage points. Those feel really impressive and are really cool to get. It's kind of like each one sort of feels like the next significant step every 5 or 10 percentage points. But then there's large-scale thresholds, which are even bigger than that, and those are more like thresholds, like big milestones in your Mojo reading career. So the first one you have is 25%, and that's where your Mojo reading accuracy starts to become statistically significant. And then you have 50%, and that's where your Mojo reading is starting to become like a valuable life skill that's actually really useful to you. And then 75%, that's when that's the requirement to be on the professional Mojo reading demo team. And 100% is when you've essentially reached the ultimate goal of any Mojo reader.
Yeah, although it's an ongoing goal. Like, so you never like arrive. We're like, I got it.
Yeah.
It has to keep.
I mean, you got it, but you got to keep it. Yeah, totally.
You always have to kind of lean forward and move forward.
Yeah, because and that's not the there is more after that too. You can always improve. There's always, because it's as we mentioned, it's not just Mojo recognition and so on and so forth.
Exactly. All right, last one here. Glenn, take lead. What is true sight? How does it relate to Mojo reading? Where does Mojo reading take one's true sight? And then how do Podler practitioners approach this process?
All right, so true sight refers to being able to observe and accept the singular truth of natural law without bias or paradox. This comes part and parcel to being a high-level Mojo reader, including the necessary seeker spirit that one needs to have in order to do so. True sight is best unlocked initially through Mojo reading, but this leads eventually into reading the truth of all aspects of natural law. As one continues to improve their Mojo reading ability, they will become aware of higher connected truths, and such as peak pathways, social alchemy, one's unconscious genius, implications to intentional living, and even into explaining the principles of spiritual experience in terms that are universally applicable. Podler practitioners are eager for these opportunities to bring their understanding of the human condition and the meaning of existence into greater alignment with the truth of natural law.
That's why we do what we do.
Right. Yeah, it's the last beat.
Yep.
I like the way there's 6 of them too. 6 last beats of Ben Mitchell Glenn, Ben Mitchell Glenn.
Yeah, it worked out good that way.
What does that mean, part and parcel?
Basically, it's a way of saying integral or intrinsic. It cannot be separated from.
Right. Right. So true sight refers to being able to accept and observe natural law truth in the most unbiased and most clean way that you possibly can, basically, without any bias and without any sort of paradox, is what the word was. Yeah. So this relates to Mojo reading in the sense that you can't become a really great Mojo reader without practicing true sight in some kind of facet or form, because Mojo reading is a phenomenon that is true and is a part of natural law. And so if one is trying to exercise their abilities in becoming a better Mojo reader, they're essentially at the same time practicing their ability to be able to see truth, accept truth, and deal with any sort of personal biases or paradoxes that they might be going through. Mojo reading is really great in the sense that as one works on their Mojo reading and they develop their true sight more and more, it will naturally lead into other areas of natural law that also are connected to Mojo reading, and so that person is able to then see natural law in a more fuller light in all different other areas as well in their life. So I mean, like if you know what truth sounds like, if you know what truth looks like, then you can apply that same ability.
Hello?
It looks like he is trying to
Restart.
reconnect.
Yeah. See his creepy
And
face?
so,
Oh,
yeah, and
here's
so you
Lucy.
can use that to.
Hello? Can you hear us, Glenn?
Yeah. Hello?
Yeah, you cut out for a little while there.
Oh, sorry. I don't know what happened.
I think are you working on the last sentence now?
Yeah, I was working on the somewhat second, third one, I think.
Okay. Could you mind doing that again? I apologize, but you cut out.
Okay. I was talking about Mojo reading as far as like it leads into other areas of natural law development. So you can develop your Mojo reading ability, and it'll give you an idea of what true sight is, and then you can apply that true sight ability into other areas like science or any other kind of area or facet of one's life that you can use to then shepherd that true sight and then be able to look at that in that kind of a manner. And so you're able to then understand natural law more fully, more completely in that way. Polymer practitioners approach the process of Mojo reading and the process of true sight with a kind of enthusiasm, because that's what we're trying to do. Basically, we're trying to develop our true sight and our Mojo reading ability so that we're able to see truth that much more better, and we're always working on that. And it's an integral part of being a polymer practitioner. Yeah, I think that I'm not sure if I got that last one there.
Yeah, I think you did. You did very well, actually. Ben?
All right. One more minute.
Yeah, I just missed saying like peak pathways and social alchemy and unconscious genius and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that kind of like is applied.
So true sight refers to being able to observe the truth of natural law the complete truth of natural law without bias or paradox. This relates to Mojo reading in that Mojo reading is integral with the fullness and completeness of natural law. Being able to Mojo read is integral with that because it is wholly connected with it and takes a certain level of spiritual confidence in order to become good at it. And one cannot have a really full understanding without understanding Mojo and having a complete understanding of Mojo reading. Mojo reading is how one first usually is where one usually starts when it comes to achieving true sight, and then Mojo reading branches off into implications such as one's peak pathway, social alchemy, the spiritual experience, explaining that to people, and intentional living lifestyles, which have a very important and significant role in a person's life, because your intentional living and your lifestyle, that's how you become a better and more developed person, which is another reason why it's integral with achieving true sight. If you aren't able to follow that, if you aren't able to read Mojo, you can't be the best and most insightful person that you can be. You can't have the base understanding of natural law because you don't have a way of really understanding who you are, right, and other people are, and what it means to live a well-developed spiritual lifestyle. And Podler practitioners, they're always eager to learn more about the Mojo phenomenon and connect that to other areas and pockets of truth and natural law in order to gain closer and closer to true sight that they can.
Boom. Mitchell, take us home.
All right. So true sight really just means being able to observe the singular truth of natural law without bias and without paradox. It relates to Mojo reading because, as part of being a high-level Mojo reading, this sight is something you're going to have to deal with and develop, because it's just going to be necessary to advance as a Mojo reader, including the seeker spirit that you'll need to do that. That just goes along with attaining better true sight. And so where Mojo reading takes one's true sight specifically is that you're going to, as you become a better Mojo reader, you're going to learn things about peak pathways, social alchemy, unconscious processes, explaining spiritual experience in terms that are universally applicable, and you're just unlocking more and more of this truth. Implications to intentional living is another one. And well, as you see this truth that relates to all aspects of the human condition, you're going to live it just a more holistically acknowledge, I guess, just more of the kind of holes of things, like just the relates.
Key givens.
Yeah. And so Polymer practitioners approach this process. Basically, if the development truth that we approach it eagerly, we want to bring our understanding of the human condition and the meaning of existence into greater alignment of natural law and in the instance, because through their lives.
Boom! Yay! This is so awesome, guys.
Nice.
Badass. You guys are crushing. Okay, so that's basically it for this area. We did, I think, a very good covering of the fundamental principles of Mojo reading. Nice.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Okay, so guys, tonight before you go to bed, make sure you all go online and post your progress. I think you're all L6 now. Level 6.
Awesome. Sweet.
Ooh.
All right, so that means that on Thursday, we're going to skip the Mojo journalism temporarily while I work more on getting some data together for that.
And do higher theory.
And we're going to do a higher theory. So higher theory starts on Thursday.
Sweet.
And I shall broadcast here real quick.